My name's Daniel Ross. I'm 32 years old, born and raised in a small town in Oregon, and if you're watching this, it means I finally decided to tell the story I've been avoiding for the last 3 years. Not because I'm ashamed of it, though maybe I am, a little, but because it's the kind of thing that sticks in your bones. It's not a weekend adventure you brag about to your buddies. It's the kind of story where you can still smell the river if you close your eyes too long. I wasn't planning on almost dying that summer. Nobody plans that. I just wanted a week to myself. A long hot August had been chewing at my nerves, and the rafting company I worked for had a break in bookings. I thought, perfect. Take the kayak, pack light, drift down the Clearwater River, maybe fish a little, camp on the banks. I'd done parts of it before, never the full stretch. I told my girlfriend I'd be gone 5 days. She made me promise to text her every night, which I said I would, knowing full well there were spots out there where a phone was just a useless brick. I waved it off, told her I'd be fine. I wasn't lying. At the time, I believed it. My gear was simple. One-man inflatable kayak, patched in 3 places but trustworthy. Dry bag with a small tent, sleeping bag, and a few changes of clothes. Jet boil stove, a handful of dehydrated meals, some jerky trail mix, first aid kit, headlamp, knife, and a waterproof case for my phone and map, 1 collapsible fishing rod. I didn't bother with a satellite beacon. I know, stupid. At the time it felt like overkill. I'd been guiding tours for years, handled rapids in worse rivers. That kind of confidence isn't bravery, it's just a blind spot you don't notice until you walk into it face first. The first day was easy. The water was warm enough to dip my hands in. Sunlight danced on the current, and the canyon walls glowed gold in the afternoon light. I stopped early, pitched my tent on a gravel bar, cooked noodles, and listened to the river whisper in the dark. Day 2 was the first hint that I wasn't in control. I woke to the sound of wind, stronger than I'd expected for that part of the canyon. The current was faster, the water stained with silt from a storm upstream. It wasn't dangerous, yet, but it had a restless energy to it, like it was waiting for the right moment to change its mind. By midday, clouds stacked in the west. They weren't the friendly summer kind. These had weight, the color of wet concrete. I pulled the kayak ashore and checked the map. I was still at least 15 miles from the next pullout, and I figured I could beat the weather if I pushed hard. The first drop of rain hit my cheek like a cold fingertip. Then another. Then a curtain of it, the kind that turns the air into a silver blur. I zipped my jacket, cinched the spray skirt, and dug in with the paddle. The river changed in minutes. What had been a steady, easy current became a pushy, unpredictable thing. Debris slid past, twigs, then branches, then whole logs. The sound deepened, hollowed out, as if the water had grown a throat and was learning how to roar. I told myself I'd handled worse. That was my first real mistake. The bend came fast, a blind S-curve between 2 walls of black rock. I leaned into it, but the current grabbed the stern and spun me. I clipped the inside wall, hard enough to pop a seam in the side tube. Air hissed out in a long traitorous sigh. In a panic, I overcorrected. The bow swung sideways into a submerged boulder. The kayak jerked to a stop, and I didn't. The river took me clean out of the seat, into the cold, into the kind of noise that swallows thought. Underwater, the world was green and violent. My paddle vanished. The current shoved me against rocks, spun me, stole the breath from my chest. I broke the surface once, got half a lungful of air and a mouthful of river, then went under again. I don't remember deciding to fight. Instinct did it for me. Kick, push, grab anything solid. My fingers brushed a root jutting from the bank, slick as oil. I missed it, then caught it on the second try. The current wanted me back, yanking at my legs like an angry thing. I hung there, coughing, spitting, my chest on fire. My kayak was gone. My dry bag, gone. The only things I had were my knife, still on my belt, and the clothes plastered to my skin. That's when it sank in. The river wasn't just the route anymore. It was the enemy. And it had already taken most of what I needed to survive. I hauled myself up the bank, boots slipping in the mud, until I collapsed on a mat of wet grass. My heart was still hammering. My hands shook. I told myself I'd rest for a minute, then figure out a plan. A minute turned into an hour. The rain didn't stop. The light began to fade. Somewhere out there, the river kept moving, indifferent, carrying my gear to places I'd never see again. That night, without a tent, without dry clothes, I learned how quickly summer can turn on you. The wind cut through me like it had a grudge. I curled under a cedar, knees to my chest, shivering so hard my teeth clicked. Sleep came in fragments, each one broken by the sound of the river rushing below. When dawn came, I was no warmer, but I was still alive. And I realized that if I didn't move soon, that would stop being true. Morning didn't come with warmth. It came gray and wet. The rain softened to a mist that clung to my skin like another layer of clothing. My fingers were stiff, my lips split in the corners. Every muscle felt like it had been wrung out and left to dry. The first thing I did was check my knife. Still there, still sharp. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I had no food, no water, at least none I could carry. The river was right there, but I knew better than to drink it straight. This far downstream from the storm, it would be laced with runoff silt, maybe worse. If I wanted water, I'd need to find a tributary, something clear and moving. The bank was steep in both directions, the kind of slope that looks manageable until you try to climb it and realize every step slides back too. I chose upriver, thinking maybe I'd find the kayak snagged on something. I didn't. What I found instead was a stretch where the bank flattened into a muddy shelf. Animal tracks pocked the surface, deer, raccoon, something bigger I couldn't name. The trees here leaned over the water, their roots like the knuckled hands of old men. I followed the shelf until it ended at a creek mouth. The water here was clear, tumbling over a bed of smooth stones. I knelt, cupped my hands, and drank. It was so cold it made my teeth ache, but it tasted clean. I drank until my stomach hurt, then filled my mouth again and swished it around, savoring it like wine. Next came food. I had no line, no hook. But I did have the knife, and with it I could cut saplings, strip them down. I sharpened the end of one into a crude spear, thinking maybe I could stab at fish in the shallows. It didn't work. Fish are faster than hunger. By midday the rain had stopped, but the clouds stayed. The air was heavy, like the jungle was holding its breath. And then I heard it. The low throaty growl that doesn't belong to anything friendly. I froze, scanning the trees. The sound came again, closer this time. My mind went through the possibilities. Bear. No, wrong part of the country. Cougar, maybe. Branches shifted in the undergrowth. My heart climbed into my throat, then it stepped into view. A dog, or what used to be a dog. Its coat was patchy, ribs showing under the skin. Eyes glassy but locked on me. A feral thing, all fight and no trust. It stalked closer, head low. I backed up slowly, keeping the knife between us. My voice came out rough. Easy, easy. It didn't care. Hunger had burned the fear out of it. When it lunged, I sidestepped, swinging the knife in a wide arc. It yelped, more in surprise than pain, and bolted into the brush. I stood there shaking, the knife slick in my hand, listening to the sound of its retreat fade. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just lost. I was competition. For food. For space. For survival. Out here, that made me fair game. By late afternoon, I found a stand of willows thick enough to weave into a lean-to. I cut branches, bent them into an arch, and layered leaves over the top. It wasn't much, but it was something to crawl under when the rain came back. I gathered what dry wood I could find, mostly from under logs where the rain hadn't reached, and built a small teepee of twigs. My lighter was still in my pocket, but the flint wheel was clogged with grit. I scraped it clean on my jeans, then struck until a spark caught. The fire was small, but it was fire. I huddled over it, palms out, letting the smoke soak into my clothes to mask my scent from anything curious. That night, the jungle spoke in voices I didn't recognize, howls, chirps, the slow deliberate snap of something big moving through brush. I kept the fire fed until dawn, because the dark here felt like it had teeth. By the third day, the rain was gone. At first, that felt like mercy, no more cold mist soaking me to the bone. But the jungle is cruel in both directions. Without the clouds, the sun burned down through the canopy, turning the air thick and unmoving. Every breath felt like drinking warm syrup. I woke to a ringing in my ears, my tongue sticking to the roof of my mouth. I'd run out of the creek water sometime in the night. My first thought was to get more, but my legs felt like they belonged to someone else. Weak, trembling, refusing to answer when I told them to move. I crawled to the creek on hands and knees. The coolness of the water against my face was almost too much to bear. I drank slowly this time, knowing too much too fast would just make me sick. Still, I couldn't stop after the first handful. I gulped until my stomach cramped, then lay on the bank, listening to the trickle like it was music. Food was no longer optional, my body was chewing through itself. My belt had already cinched tighter, my jeans loose around my hips. I thought about that dog from yesterday. In a twisted way, I almost hoped it would come back. At least then, the hunger would have a target. Instead, I found berries, small dark purple, clustered on a bush in the partial shade. I hesitated. Half the stories you hear about people dying in the wild start with eating the wrong plant. But these looked like wild blackberries. The leaves familiar. The thorns sharp. I popped one into my mouth, chewed slowly. Sweet, tart, no bitterness. I ate a dozen, then stopped myself, worried they'd upset my stomach. With the heat climbing, I decided to move. The longer I stayed in one place, the easier it was for the jungle to close in around me. Bugs, animals, the slow creep of rot. I followed the creek deeper inland, figuring it would eventually lead to higher ground and maybe a clearing. By midday the air shimmered. Sweat soaked my shirt, stung my eyes. I stopped to rest under a wide banyan, leaning my back against the cool bark. That's when I saw it. A trail. Not a game trail, but something wider, beaten down. It was heading east. I didn't know if east meant salvation or trouble, but it was a direction, and that was something. The first sign of trouble came 20 minutes later. A rustle in the brush, low and fast. I froze. The sound circled me, closer each time. I caught flashes. Brown fur, a tail with a black tip. A cat. Not the house kind. It stepped out onto the trail 30 feet ahead. Lean, muscular, golden eyes fixed on me, a cougar. My knife felt like a toothpick in my hand. I raised my arms, made myself look bigger, shouting until my voice cracked. The cat didn't flinch. It took a slow step forward, then another. Every instinct screamed to run, but I knew better. You run, your prey. I backed away, keeping my eyes locked on it, my voice loud and ugly. The standoff lasted forever, maybe a minute, maybe 5. Then, just like that, it turned, melting into the green without a sound. My legs gave out. I sat in the dust, shaking so hard, I almost dropped the knife. That close. One wrong move, and I'd have been just another meal the jungle didn't care to remember. By late afternoon, I found what passed for shelter, a shallow rock overhang at the base of a cliff. Cool shade, a little breeze. I gathered wood, started another fire, ate the last of the berries. That night, the hunger changed. It wasn't just a hollow in my gut anymore. It was in my head, whispering. It showed me images of food I'd eaten years ago. Burgers dripping grease, my mother's stew, a cold beer sweating in my hand. I told myself tomorrow I'd find something more. Tomorrow, I'd trap something. Tomorrow, I'd stop being just lost and start fighting back. The jungle didn't answer. It never does. I woke before dawn to the sound of something moving in the leaves. My first thought was the cougar again. I gripped the knife and waited, holding my breath, but what stepped into the faint gray light wasn't a cat. It was a pig. Wild, bristled, tusked, rooting through the undergrowth. Food. My heart kicked into overdrive. I knew wild pigs could be dangerous, but they were also edible. The problem was catching one with nothing but a knife. The wind was in my favor, carrying my scent away. I eased from the overhang, staying low, using the brush as cover. The pig was busy tearing up the ground. I crept close, 10 feet, maybe less. I launched forward, yelling, knife in hand. The pig squealed and bolted, but not before I raked the blade across its flank. It wasn't deep, but it was enough to make it stumble. I chased it like a man possessed, adrenaline turning my legs into pistons. When I caught up, I lunged for its neck. We went down in a thrashing mess of fur and dirt. It bit at my leg, tusk grazing my thigh. I drove the knife in again, harder, until the fight went out of it. The kill shook me. Not from guilt, but from the sheer violence of it. My hands were trembling as I dragged the carcass back to the overhang. My leg was bleeding, but shallow. I built the fire higher, skinned what I could, hacked strips of meat, roasted them over the flames. The first bite nearly made me dizzy, grease and salt and life. I ate until my stomach protested, then kept going. For the first time in days, I felt strength coming back. My hands stopped shaking. My thoughts stopped drifting. That's when I heard it, faint, rhythmic, mechanical. A helicopter. I scrambled to the cliff edge, scanning the sky. There it was, a dark speck moving low, following the valley. I grabbed a burning branch from the fire, waving it over my head. I tore the orange lining from my jacket and spread it on the ground. The chopper kept moving, almost past me. Desperation clawed at my chest. I threw the branch into the dry brush below. Flames leapt, smoke billowing. That got their attention. The helicopter banked, circled, came in low. A voice boomed over a loudspeaker. "Stay where you are." I dropped to my knees, relief hitting so hard it almost knocked me over. The rescue crew lowered a man on a harness. He landed light, like he'd done it 100 times. "You hurt?" he shouted over the rotor wash. "Just tired," I said, though my voice cracked on the word. He clipped me into the harness, and then the ground was falling away. The jungle spread beneath us like an endless, dangerous ocean. Inside the helicopter, the air was cool, dry, clean. Someone handed me water. I drank half the bottle before I realized I was shaking. We flew over the canopy for what felt like forever. I looked down at the green expanse, the creek winding like a silver thread. Somewhere down there was the overhang, the fire, the pigs' remains. All of it swallowed by a jungle that didn't care if I'd made it out or not. At the hospital, they patched my leg, rehydrated me, gave me real food. The nurse asked if I wanted to call anyone. I called my brother. His voice cracked when he picked up. "We thought you were gone." "Almost," I said. Later, when they asked me what kept me alive, I told them it wasn't luck. It wasn't even skill. It was refusing to stop. In the jungle, stopping is dying. And if you make it out, the best thing you can do is tell the story. So someone else knows it's possible.